There's no reverence, no devotion. There's no faith, no veneration.
Hey everyone, it's Ivan, KBAT.com, here today to talk about the KBATs, Kit Badger Anatomy Targets. For the shooter, there's a lot of targets on the market. When you start looking into anatomically correct targets, not quite as many. One of my favorites is actually the Viking Tactics target. Basically from the groin all the way to the head, shows skeletal features, amazing target. One of the reasons I love it is the same reason I have a hard time with it. It's big. Being big, you either have this kind of unwieldy sheet of cardboard or you have these big basically posters. My issue with posters is I don't have or ever want to have a range bag big enough for a poster tube. So they ultimately get folded, or if I do manage to keep them rolled up, it turns into a comedy skit while I'm trying to get this thing laid flat so I can get it stapled up onto a target backer. Then we have another anatomical target. The other target I've used to good effect is the Sage Dynamics Vital Anatomy target. Pretty cool target and free printable PDF. Just download it, print it off 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and yeah, shows your vital anatomy. Put it up one on top of the other. It's pretty cool. The one issue I've ran into with it is at distance, rather than seeing a target indicator, i.e. silhouette, ears, something along those lines, you're actually presented with this big circle and then this brain stem. So how do I address those things? One being size, as much as I love the VTAC targets, and the other being the target indicators. I ended up coming up with my KBATs. Why did I end up creating the KBATs? Largely in part because of this guy. I've vetted on these for years, used them a ton, and you know what? They're probably the gold standard, but they are a gross misrepresentation of the human form, as opposed to something like this. And where this really comes into play is things like failure drills. The distance from here to here isn't necessarily the distance from there to there, or especially with a long gun and your offset, your optic, height over bore, all that stuff, coming in and where you're gonna hold here versus where you're actually gonna hold here. This is a gross misrepresentation, and I feel it actually does a disservice to shooters. So I made these guys. When I set out to make my KBATs, I wanted them to be right. Basically, at first it started with me in front of the mirror with a ruler, getting dimensions. From there, went back, started sketching with skeletal references. Got the head down, same thing with the thoracic cavity, and making sure they lined up in such a way that it would be anatomically correct. With that, eventually they made it into Adobe Illustrator, a couple of renditions, came out with what we have now, and I'm really pleased with the product. With the KBAT, we have these two sheets, 8.5 by 11. As you can see, this bold outline of a silhouette. So as we step back, what we're actually presented with, our target, is a silhouette. We're not seeing a target zone inside of someone. And on the bottom thoracic sheet, basically it's a big box. One, admittedly, it's kind of a reference. So it's not just a blank sheet of paper as you step back, but the other twofold part of it is the top edge of this box. When you line up this top sheet, basically it sets it up perfect with respect to your anatomy as far as the distance between all of this stuff. Your heart, your head, everything like that, it's anatomically correct at that point. As you can see, inside we have the bone structure as well as the brain stem, but it's really light. As soon as we start pushing back, it all disappears. And again, as far as the target indicator, all we have is that silhouette. This can be used twofold. One, as it is, you can just use it. And in this configuration, it arguably also pretty much looks like the back of someone's head as well. Granted, eyes, nose, those are target indicators. If you want, you can easily take a Sharpie, color these guys in, at which point you have that as a target indicator. Another cool feature with the KBAT is, if you're feeling crafty, go ahead and affix this top target, cut the silhouette out, and then throw your other target on there. Drape a shirt over it. At that point, all this is masked. But after shooting, after your string of fire, you can come up, lift this shirt up, and see actually where those rounds were impacting on that anatomy. And then it's really easy to just change this target out, drop that shirt back down, go ahead, shoot another string. Pretty cool, pretty handy. Where can you find these guys? You can download them from KBAT.com, print them off at home, or I've made them into these handy pads of 50, cardboard backed, glued across the top. With the pad of 50, as you peel off one and flip it over, you have your thoracic cavity on the back. So totally up to you as far as how you want to use them. In addition to that, really high quality 100-pound paper, they're rad. About 20 bucks, you can either get them through KBAT.com, Amazon, or a couple other places. And being a pad, it's not going to turn into a yard sale in your range bag. Easy to carry, easy to use. Back to the why, I created these to give shooters a realistic target and 2 sheets of paper. Something they can take anywhere, use, you can print them off at home, you can buy a pad of 50, however you want to do it, but you can go out there and get good training on realistic targets with respect to true anatomy. As far as being able to use your rifle, that height over bore issue, or failure drills, anything and everything, giving people an accurate representation of the human body. Ultimately, what would I like to see? Basically a trophic cascade in the tactical world. I'd like to see people move away from that really crappy representation of a silhouette and stuff that's more realistic, that actually lends to good training. At least I think so. But if you pick these up, let me know how they do for you. And as always, thanks for joining us at KBAT.com. Look forward to seeing you next time.
Always outnumbered, never outgunned, ready for every situation. There's no reverence, no devotion. There's no faith, no veneration.